So this is a CMA workshop, and once you are on MiamiRealtors.com, you are going to go ahead and click on the Miami Gateway or MLS login in the top right corner and log in with your license and password. From here, you'll go ahead and look for Matrix, click on Matrix, and load that. We have some announcements, virtual open houses and temporary guidelines for those active and active with contract listings. We've extended our temporary off market from 30 days to 90 days. And we have tools available for you. If you go to the National Association of Realtors website, they do have tools available for you right now, certain services that are free. They're even offering classes for certifications and designations at a reduced rate or free. So you can go ahead and check those out. All right, so please remember there is a chat feature, so if questions come up, you can go ahead and leave them in the chat and I will address them later. Try to be as specific as possible, because once I'm done with the entire presentation, it's easiest if you say, hey, in Matrix, what about XYZ? So just try to be specific with the product and the question that you have. And I'll go ahead and I'll stick around a few minutes after the end of the webinar so that I can address those and help you as much as possible. So in Matrix, there are two different ways that you can create a CMA. It's the same report, but it's basically two different doorways into the same report. The first one would be if you go to My Matrix, you click on My CMAs, and there's a button to start a new CMA. However, the second option is the one most people seem to prefer, and that's to go straight into a search, run your search, go through your comparables, pick them, and then there's a button at the bottom conveniently that says CMA. So I'm actually going to start through there. In Matrix 301, I kind of show you both starting points, and I also show you what every single page in the report or the options for every single page, what those are and what they look like. But we're going to stick to just creating the report. I'll give you a suggestion of pages to include in your report. We're going to go ahead, and I chose a property earlier today, and it is a single family home. And of course, I'll show you how you can work with condos as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the search. So we're going to hover over search, click on RE1, RE2. And when we are searching for comparables, you have your active, active with contract, closed sale, and pending sale. And your closed sale is going to be for the last 6 months, which is why we are going to leave it as it is right now, 0-180. If you have gone to the PSA, which is the Pricing Strategy Advisor certification, they recommend minimum active and closed sales for the last 6 months. Some people like to also look at active with contract and pending. That part is entirely up to you. And by the way, the PSA, which is the Pricing Strategy Advisor, is being offered via webinar. So I would take advantage because A, it's cheaper than it normally is because the webinar is cheaper than attending the live face-to-face class. And B, usually the PSA comes around once a year around October. So it's coming around now. You don't have to wait until October. But if you're interested in that webinar, I believe it's $40. And it is on our calendar, so you can check out that information same way you check out information for any other class. Okay, and that is going to be April 22nd. Okay, so April 22nd, the cost is $40. It is with a Florida Realtors instructor. Her name is Cynthia Rowley. She's wonderful. It's on the calendar, so check it out, April 22nd. But anyway, in that class, in that certification, they discuss minimum active closed sales. I know some people like to add in the other two statuses, so I'm going to go ahead and add those in. Now, the property that I selected as an example is single family, so I'm going to go ahead and select single family. And we are going to search for comparables when it is single family or a townhouse within half a mile. If it's a condo, it's the same building. So later on, when I show you an example of how to search for comparables for a condo, I'm going to show you how you would stick to just the building. But for single family and townhouse, we are going to, where it says map search, change that from 0.25 to 0.5. And where it says miles of, we're going to plug in the address. Now, if you notice, it starts to give me suggestions. But because I use Google Chrome also holds on to information and tries to offer it as a suggestion. A lot of times this feature doesn't recognize those suggestions. It's as if the field were still blank. So always look for the drop down that says, did you mean? Because that drop down is coming from Matrix directly. So the property address is 1946 Southwest 20th Street. And there it is. I have to click on that suggestion, and you'll notice there's a phrase up here that says no map selected. The minute I click on the address, the phrase changes and it changes colors and it says map area selected. Always keep an eye out for that. If that red phrase doesn't pop up, the system has no idea where it should be drawing your radius. Now, all the way to the right. This property has 3 bedrooms, so I'm going to start with 3 bedrooms. 2 bathrooms, I'm going to start with 2 bathrooms. If I don't get enough results, then I may need to look for properties that have an additional bedroom and or bathroom. We are going to specify square foot living area, and we are going to calculate a 20% range, which means we take the square footage of the living area for this property, which I had already looked it up and I know it has 1,743 square feet. We take that, let's say 1,700, and we multiply it by 0.20 or 0.2 to get that 20%. And then we are going to subtract that and we are going to add that. So it gives us a minimum and a maximum. So 20% of 1,700 is 340 square feet. So if I take that 1,700 minus that 340, I'm going to get approximately 1,360. If I take that 1,700 plus that 340, I'm going to get 2,040. Okay, so again, for the square footage, we are going to calculate 20%. We are going to take that 20%. Let me pull up a calculator because sometimes it's a little easier to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, if it's 1,700, I'm going to say 1,700 times 0.2 for 20%, and I get 340. So now I have to say 1,700 minus 340, which is going to give me 1,360. 1,700 plus 340 is going to give me 2,040. So now the square footage that I'm looking for, because I'm looking for properties that are nearby, I'm looking for properties that are similar in size and in characteristics, which is why I'm using bed and bath. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say we're looking for properties that are between 1,360 square feet and 2,040. Now we're going to do the same for the property square footage as well, which is like the lot size. Now this lot is approximately, I have it written down here, the square footage for the lot is approximately 6,600 square feet. So again, sometimes it's just easier to see it. I know for me it is. So if I take that 6,600 and I multiply it times 0.2, I get 1,320. So 6,600 minus 1,320 gives me a minimum of 5,280. 6,600 plus that 1,320 gives me 7,920. So I'm going to plug in here 5,280, 7,920. So again, we're looking for properties that are similar in size, nearby, so that we can pull those comps. And I have 10 results, which is not bad. PSA, which is the Pricing Strategy Advisor, recommends that you get 3 to 4 good comps. Statistically speaking, if I only have a handful of results, the likelihood that all of those properties will be accurate comparables is slim to none. So I would say always try to make sure that you have at least 10 results, because you know that from those 10, hopefully about half of them will be good comps, and we need 3 to 4. So we go ahead into the results. And of course, before you create a CMA, you should have seen the property so that you can see what characteristics it has. Has it been updated, remodeled? Does it need an update or remodel? So that you can find comparables that are similar to that property. So here we have the list of comparables. We have 2 actives, an active with contract. We have 5 or 6 closed sales and a pending sale. So at this point, we would need to click into every single listing and select the listings that are most similar to our subject property. Okay, so I would click into the MLS number. I would read through everything. I would look through everything. If it is similar, there is a little checkbox at the top left corner, and we go ahead and we check it off. If it is not, obviously we leave it without selection. We go to the next property, we repeat the process. Okay, we check it off. If at any point in time you want to go back to the original list, remember you have to click on Agent Single Line, and it takes you back to the list. So I'm going to select 2 actives. I'm going to select 2 closed sales, because minimum we should have a variety of statuses, but we're going to go through, and I had already looked at the subject property, and it's pretty, you know, from what I last saw in an old listing, it was okay. It was, now that I don't have any recent pictures, so I'm going to assume that it has been remodeled and up to date. This one is as well, so maybe I want to check that one off. The next one, and of course if it's a 1-story property, I'm going to use other 1-story properties. I'm not going to select a 2-story home. So I'm going to go through and we're going to look through everything, check the pictures, check the details, the remarks, select some properties. So alright, so if I go back to Agent Single Line, I've picked a couple of closed sales, a couple of actives, a couple of active with contract. At the bottom of the screen, there is a button that says CMA. If I click on it, it takes me into the process of creating the CMA. So in the starting point, because now I have this nice little taskbar up here, I can select the contact name. So let's say I'm going to do this for Audrey Hepburn. I can select the CMA language. It's available in English and Spanish, and I can type in a description. We recommend that in the description you place the address. You can place whatever you'd want to place here. It's an open field, but we recommend this because when you're looking at a long list of CMAs, you'll see the description that you included and you'll see the name of your customer. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug in the info. And then once you've plugged this in, if you notice, it says on the right hand side, auto saved. It is saving for you every step of the way, but if you'd like, you can click on the disk and save it yourself as well. After your starting point, you have your pages. Now, the comparables that we just pulled and looked at all came from the MLS, and that means that there may have been sales that occurred without an agent that I wouldn't see here in Matrix. What I see in Matrix is what was entered by a realtor. There may have been some sort of FSBO that occurred that could potentially give me a better understanding of that market. So I need to also look at the tax record. So in this section where you get to add your pages, and by the way, those are the pages that I recommend, listed on the right hand side where it says selected pages. You can jot those down, you can take a picture. But in this section, you're also allowed, if you notice on the left hand side, to upload your own custom pages. So one of the things I like to show you is how you can jump into something like IMAP, find the comparables for that property in IMAP, download that information, and go ahead and import it into Matrix. So you have the comparables that you found in the MLS in combination with any comparables you found in the tax record that were not represented in the MLS. So what I'm going to do now is, since we're in the pages, in the top menu options for Matrix, you have a link to IMAP. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click on IMAP. It's going to leave Matrix there. It's open in another tab, but now I have IMAP in a new tab. On the left where it says Miami Realtors, log in via Safe MLS, single sign-on, I click, it's going to take me to IMAP. There we go. So to pull the comparables, I need to make sure that I'm in the tax search, and it is a Miami-Dade property, so I need to make sure that on the right where it says county, I'm in Miami-Dade County. Where it says property address, I'm going to go ahead and plug in that property address for that subject property example that we're using, which is 1946 Southwest 20th Street. And then you'll notice that at the bottom of the screen, it says Start Search. I'm going to click on Start Search. So this is the tax record for the property. On the right-hand side, however, there's an option that says Find Comparables. I'm going to go ahead and click on Find Comparables. And I already have my criteria set. So if I scroll down a little bit, okay, I have my criteria set and I set it as a default. So again, if you want to take a moment, jot this down or take a picture if you'd like to duplicate this in your own account. The minute you click on Set as Default, that criteria is stored as your default, and every time you click on find comparables, that's the criteria it'll be using. If for whatever reason you don't get enough results, in this situation I got 12 results. If I don't get enough results, I could go ahead and I could modify any of these and update the criteria to just change it in that moment for that specific case or scenario. Now the comparables that show up, if they have a blue R icon, that means that they were sold by a realtor. So I could have already potentially seen that in the MLS. What I'm interested in is finding those that don't have that blue R. I want to look at those sales that did not occur with the use of a realtor. So I can actually remove all of these that have the blue R and kind of leave just the sales that occurred without agents. So I'm going to go ahead and take off all of these. So of those 12 results, I have 2. And one of them sold for $430 and one of them sold for $160, which is far below what I'm seeing so far. So maybe I want to expand this. Maybe I want to look for properties that sold in the last year instead of the last 6 months. So I can say switch this to sold in the last year, and I can update that criteria. Okay, now I have a few more results, and I can go ahead and again I can remove. Every time you do this, it'll bring back all of the results. So you would have to remove all of those sales that occurred with an agent. And it could be that even though I extended it to a year, it's still those same 2 sales. Creating CMAs and analyzing comparables is a process. It's not a click and done. It's not a one and done situation. So now I have 4 sales. And I see that I have that one for $160. I'm going to remove it. But now I've got, $300, $450, $430. And let's say I wanted to include this in my report. On the right hand side, it says save as PDF. Okay. Remember, in order for me to include it in Matrix, you can also include it in RPR. It needs to be a PDF. So I'm going to go ahead and say save as PDF. And it's going to go ahead and download into my download folder. And I know that because I use Google Chrome, and that's generally what it does. Okay, now ideally, I would have preferred for these comparables to have been on the same side of 22nd Avenue and Coral Way as the subject property. Unfortunately, sometimes you don't have that option. They're still rather close because they're within half a mile, but ideally they would be in the same general area. So I know it downloaded. I'm going to go back into Matrix and click on Upload Custom Pages. When I click on Upload Custom Pages, I can now choose the file. And I know it went into my downloads. There it is. And I click on Open. Once you've opened it, you still have to upload it. And once it's been uploaded, you can have a header added. So this is what it looks like. It generally looks like the header doesn't belong there. You see how you can very obviously tell it's not supposed to be part of the design. So I'm actually going to go ahead and where it says add header, I'm going to remove that check mark and click on save. All I've done is uploaded the page. I now have to make sure to include it in my report. So I'm going to actually click on that page and notice that it now appears on the right hand side. So I can go ahead and leave it there, or I can use these arrows all the way to the right to move them up and down and reorganize them. So I have my preferred pages. I have my comparables from IMAP. I'm going to go ahead and after pages, I'm going to click on subject. So where it says subject, I can either type in the information for the property manually, so I can go ahead and fill everything out myself. I can use an old MLS number, so if I know it was listed a few years ago, I can take that number, plug it in here, click on fill. It's going to copy and paste the information from that older listing into the report, and then I can just modify it. And then the last option is, I'm not sure if it's been listed, and I want to go ahead and see if I can find it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that option. And all you have to do for this is remove all of your statuses. So I'm going to go ahead and at the bottom left where it says clear, I'm going to clear everything out. And all you need to do is plug in the address in the center where it says street number, street direction, street name. So I'm looking to see if it was listed at some point so that I don't have to type everything in myself. So I type in the address for the property, which is 1946 Southwest 20 I don't put the TH, RD, ND. I don't put street, ST, terrace, TER. I don't put anything. I leave just the number and I go to the results. And it turns out that this property has been listed twice in the last 10 or so years. And the most recent is usually the first one. Okay, so it was a closed sale. I'm going to go ahead and select it and click on fill from selected. What this does is it'll now fill out the information. There's a picture. I can go ahead and browse my device and upload a new, more recent picture. If anything has changed, I can update it. I can go ahead and write my own remarks, leave the remarks that were there. That's up to you. But now everything else has been plugged in. Once you're done with the subject, you can move on to the cover sheet. On the cover sheet, you have a picture of the property again, which you can browse your device and upload a new, more recent picture. You can add in the rest of the information for the property underneath the customer's name. You can also make sure that your information is up to date. So, in Matrix 101, we help you fill out your information for your cover sheet. One thing I like to always point out, there is a silhouette or a cutout of two people shaking hands that appears with your information. If you do not upload your photo or a logo or change that, that silhouette will show up on your reports. So make sure that you update that. Okay, so we have our subject property info, we have our customer, we have our info, perfect. When we click on comparables, those comparables that we had checked off would go ahead and, sorry, I removed the check marks. I would go ahead and make sure that they've been selected, and I would say, let me remove the others. And I would say, okay, I don't want the rest of these. I know that I had picked the first 5. I remove selected. The map allows you to give this a once over. So, for example, I had originally mentioned that ideally it'd be nice if everything was kind of on the same side. So everything else that's over here, I would need to remove. The different colors symbolize different things. So the blue would be closed sales, the green would be actives, and the orange would be active with contracts. So if I wanted to remove some of these because I notice I don't like where they are, they're a little too far away for my liking, I can go back to the comparables and I can say, okay, I want to remove this active with contracts. I click, I say okay, it goes ahead and it takes it away. Give it a once over, and you can always jump back and forth and remove them. So again, I want to get rid of that pending sale. I can go back, click on it, click remove, say okay. One thing I'd like to point out is on the map, you need to be careful with the way they're numbered. On the map, it's including the subject property. So what that means is, let's say I wanted to get rid of number 9. Number 9 is 2021 Southwest 24th Street. When I go to my comparables, it's not number 9. Okay, the fact that they include the subject property throws the numbers off. So when you want to remove something, always be mindful of the number, the address, not the number on the list. After your map, you have your adjustments. Adjustments allow you, there we go. Adjustments allow you to go ahead and say, okay, maybe I had to pick something that had a pool or something that had an additional bedroom or bathroom. You can go ahead and you can adjust manually the pricing of that comparable. Now, if you don't feel comfortable with this, because you have to make sure you calculate what those values are. For example, if I had to select a property with a pool, how much is a pool worth in this area? I would need to do additional research, see what, single family properties with pools sell for, without, and kind of get an idea of what the value of a pool is in that area based on the differences between those two averages or medians. So it requires additional research because you have to calculate what those estimated values for those features are. Now, if you don't feel comfortable with that, RPR has some tools that help you with that, and RPR has an adjustment tool that calculates values for you. You don't have to calculate the values. So you'll see those when we get to RPR. But let's say I needed to add value. So theoretically, let's say all of the ones I chose don't have a pool, but let's say I had to pick one that had a pool. I would go ahead and I would say, okay, if it has something extra, something additional, I have to remove that value. If it has something, it's lacking something, I need to add or boost the value. We're basically leveling the playing field. To add value in this part of the system, you would just type in the number. So if I wanted to add $20,000 to this comparable, I could go ahead and add the $20,000. And you'll notice that where it says price and adjusted price, it's now jumped up $20,000. If I wanted to remove value, I would put minus and the value, and it would go ahead and deduct those $20,000. So now the 510 dropped to 490. So again, to add value when you're making adjustments in Matrix, simply type the number. To deduct value, you're going to go ahead and put a minus or a negative symbol and the number so that you can subtract that. And again, those numbers would come from additional research that you would have to perform through additional searches or through other systems to see what's going on with the values based on those characteristics. Now, once you've made your adjustments, you have your pricing. And if you look at your median and average, we're hovering at about 510 to 518. You can create a range, and we recommend that you offer a range. That way, if for whatever reason you have to modify the pricing, you've already had that discussion early on. So where it says suggested list price, you would simply type in your suggested list price. So let's say I think the suggested list price should be 510 to 525. Okay, and I wouldn't go more than $20,000 just because, generally speaking, that's too far out of a range. It's too generalized. But this allows you to say, okay, I think this is the window. They're obviously going to tell you list it at 525. If it doesn't sell in a month or two, you can start reducing it, and you've given yourself a set of values to work with. Whereas if you go in with an exact price, and it is up to you, that's up to you entirely. If you go in with an exact price, you're kind of limiting your range of movement. So this gives you a little more room. The notes that they give you here gives you 1,000 characters, which is approximately like 5 paragraphs worth of information. If you wanted to give an additional explanation, an additional breakdown, remember that this is a CMA, it's not a legal document. So it's not like I would go in here and start to add clauses and whatnot. But this is where I would explain where I got my information, why I think that's the range, what I think the potential marketing plan could be for it. It could be anything you want, 1,000 characters. And then once you have set your pricing, you go ahead to finish. Okay, so here I have a summary of the subject property. We have the option to see the report, email it. We have a summary of the pages and the comparables that we selected. If I go to view CMA, just to show you what the CMA looks like with the pages that I selected and to show you what the IMAP comparables look like in the report. I have my cover sheet, it's about 13 pages long. I have my subject property and my comparables. I have some information on each of the comps that I chose. I have a breakdown of what happened with the active listings, the closed sales, a summary of everything all together. The CMA pricing recommendation is right here. Any notes you add in would be right beneath that in this blank area. Your guarantee as a realtor, the map, and then these are the IMAP comps that I had pulled. Okay, so you've got all of your information in one place. Now I'm going to go back to Matrix and I'm going to go back to that search. So using recent searches, I'm going to click on that number 10. And I had selected these 5. Now if I don't need a full-blown report and I want something a little more condensed, instead of clicking on CMA, I'm going to go ahead and click on print. So let me refine this, narrow it down. All right, so if I wanted something that's a little more concise, maybe for myself, because if I want some calculations for myself, I'm not going to create a 15-page listing presentation. Maybe you have someone who is more of an investor and they're interested more in numbers than in a presentation. For whatever reason, if you need something that's a little more concise, instead of clicking on CMA, to the left of CMA where it says print, I click, and once you're in print, there is a report called the CMA one line. And if you'd like to also throw in your comparables, you can hold down the control key, or if you're on a Mac, the command key, and click on the 3-up comparison. So the CMA 1 line and the 3-up comparison, I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. Instead of 15 pages, you have 4. So the CMA 1 line is generally 1 to 2 pages, and it's broken down by status. So here's what happened with my active properties, here's what happened with my active with contract, here's what happened with my closed sales. And then at the bottom, where it says grand totals, I have the total of everything. The price per square foot, days on market, the original price, the list price, and the sold price. And then the 3-up takes the comparables or the listings that you chose, and it puts them into columns so that you have a little more information, including the remarks for each of the comparables. You don't need that. You can leave just the CMA 1 line, but this is a 3 to 4 page version instead of a 15-page version of a potential CMA. It's just condensed. It's like a summary. Okay, so I wanted to make sure to show you that option. I'm going to go back home, and I'm actually going to jump into RPR and show you how to create a CMA in RPR for the same property so that you can kind of see what those two reports look like. Let me close this out. All right, so back on the gateway, I'm going to look for RPR. And if you have never logged into RPR, you do have to activate it. It's a product from or of NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors. But if I wanted to create a report, I could simply just go to reports in the top corner, or I could plug in the address here. So 1946 Southwest 20th Street. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. And there's a ton of information in RPR. There is an overwhelming amount of information. And what we're focused on is creating the CMA. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to click on comp analysis. You can also just click on create. You can also click on create a report. They're all going to take you to the option to create a CMA. So we're going to go into the comp analysis, and you have two different versions. They have a comparative analysis and a sales comparison analysis. And if you don't know what the difference is, they're very transparent. They always tell you where their information comes from, what it all means. If I click on what's the difference, they're going to give me a nice little video that breaks it down. Okay, but at the bottom, there is an explanation that the comparative analysis helps agents generate a price range for a property by integrating comps and market information with knowledge of the property and the neighborhood, whereas the sales comparison analysis is a more detailed property evaluation similar to what an appraiser might conduct. The key difference between the two workflows is the extent to which the property and comps information can be adjusted by the user. So I had mentioned that if you don't feel comfortable with calculating the estimated value of characteristics so that you can adjust your comparables, you might prefer what they offer you here in the comparative analysis. So the first step would be make sure that you pick which of the two you'd like to use. The second step would be confirm the home facts. So I click on confirm facts, and here's what's in the public record. If anything isn't accurate, I can go ahead and change it in the column that says your changes. I'm going to confirm those facts and close. Once you've confirmed the facts, the second step would be to search for comparables. So I'm going to go ahead and click on find comps. And it already knows that it's single family. It is searching for active for sale, pending. I can go ahead and say public record as well. And it's got the sold. Where it says date, it says within the last 6 months. Where it says property details, they already supply their own, but I'm going to go ahead and put 3 to 3 and 2 to 2. That's going to assure that the results I get have exactly 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. The living area. So the living area that we had calculated for this is a little different than what they have. So their living area is a little more expansive, just a little bit. We had said about 1,300 to about 2,000. They're saying 1,100, so it's just a tad bit more, but nothing out of this world. And I'm going to go ahead and check off lot size. I now need to specify the area. So on the actual map, you can draw a shape. So I can say draw radius. Here's the property, click, drag. It's going to tell me when I get to the half a mile. I let go and I can search in this area. If you prefer, you can use what they call geographies. So where it says geography, you can start with something like the micro neighborhood. Unfortunately, sometimes that isn't mapped. That's why it says no geography data. If I say minor neighborhood, okay, it is now being really specific about this little neighborhood that they've mapped out. If you say intermediate, it's going to be a little bit larger. And if you say macro, it's going to usually be the zip code. But let's see if we get anything in this minor area. So I say minor area, search in this area. This assures that I am staying on the right side of 22nd Avenue and Coral Way, and I get one property. Okay, so if that doesn't work, you can always say go to the intermediate, search in this area. All right, and so now I have a lot more to work with, but I'm going to the other side of 22nd Avenue and I don't want to. That's why I also pointed out the shapes, because that allows you to have a little more control. So if I wanted to draw like a box, and let's say those results are still there, and I wanted to make sure to stay right here in this little area where my property is, and I say search in this area, I'm staying within, and I'm staying kind of concise to where I'm at. But you can also draw a radius. So it's up to you. You can draw a radius, click and drag to about half a mile, and then say search in this area. So it's up to you. Now, once you are done with either drawing your shape or using a geography, and you say search in this area, your properties come up beneath that. If you would like to add a property to your list of comparables on the right hand side, you click on add to comps list. If it was used by RPR to calculate the value of the property, because they estimate the value of the property, it's called their it's an AVM, it's an automated valuation model. They call theirs the RVM. They'll let you know with a blue star that they themselves use this property to calculate the estimated value of the subject property. So we're going to go ahead and you can go click on each of these. It'll open in a separate tab. You can review the information for each of these properties, and you can say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this one. I'm picking some recently solds. I'm picking some actives. So I'm going to go ahead and say this one and this one, okay? When you're done picking them, you'll notice that on the right hand side, they're giving you a range. They're giving you the list of properties. I'm going to go ahead and update that valuation and close. So once you've picked your comparables, they, in the third step, allow you to adjust those comparables, because sometimes they're not exact and we need to make an adjustment. Now, I mentioned earlier that if you didn't feel comfortable with the adjustments in Matrix, because you have to calculate the value of those features and then add or remove, you can use RPR. So RPR lets you say, okay, this property is about the same, this one is a little bit better. The thing though that you'll notice is that each of these has like little not tabs, but little line marks, and each of those line marks has a different value assigned to it. So if this one's a little bit better, it's going to go ahead and deduct $6,300. If it's a little bit better than that, $12,000, $18,000, and if it's just completely better, it's way better, it's $25,000. They calculate this themselves. So I'm just going to say it's a little bit better. Maybe this one's a little bit worse. Okay, and it's going to adjust those prices for you. And you'll see those amounts right here. Okay? And you'll be able to adjust them that way. Now I had picked 4, so on the top right I say next. Here's that last property. This one's worse, so I'm going to adjust that. So you can make your adjustments that way and let RPR use their estimated values. When you're done, you click on Update Valuation and close. In the fourth step, you have the amount or the range. Now, when we had done this in Matrix, okay, and if I go to my Matrix and I go to my CMAs, I have the list of all my CMAs. I can edit them, delete them, share them again, print them out. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up really quickly. So it's all the way down here. I can go ahead and I can edit, view it, email it, or delete it. So we had said for this one, I think we had said 510 to 525. And in RPR, I mean, granted, I didn't pick comparables all that great, but let's say I'm not in agreement with what they said. I can go ahead and click on edit, and I can say, all right, let's say 515 with a range of 510 to 525. So you can override what they have said and click on save. And what the customer sees is what you have said instead of what RPR has calculated. This comes in handy as well when sometimes it's a little more than you expected and you don't want your customer to see that. You want them to focus on what you had calculated or vice versa. So you can go ahead and overwrite it. And then when you're done, you click on create report, which is the last step. Now they call the CMA the seller's report, and I'm going to click on more details. If you click on more details, you see the list of pages. These are a lot of pages. I'm going to go ahead and create the report as is so that you can see how long it is. But at the bottom, you can include any notes you've taken on the property. You can include the seller's proceeds entries if you calculated seller's proceeds. You can suppress the estimated value for the subject property, which means they will not see what RPR has calculated as the value. You can suppress the estimated value for the comps, so the same thing, but for the comparables that you chose. You can suppress the refined value, and you can have the data for the sales come from public record and listings. I'm going to go ahead and run this report. This report is lengthy, okay? They are estimating it will be about 75 pages long. We do not need a 75-page CMA. That would be a very long presentation, and at the end of the day, your customer is not concerned with 75 pages of information. They are concerned with the bottom line, which is how much can we sell this property for. So I'm going to go ahead, and on this screen I'm going to show you what you would need to remove in order for your report to be a more condensed version, because we don't need all of this stuff. So I'm going to remove some check marks, and you can take a picture and make sure that your report, we don't need market conditions, we just need the pricing. Okay, so I removed quite a bit. So again, I'm going to leave this up here if you want to snap a picture. But this is what I'm leaving behind. I don't need my report to have 75 pages. So I've removed quite a bit. Okay, and if you don't get a picture now, I'll make sure to pull this up again. But here's our suggestion of pages. And I'm going to go ahead, and at the bottom, you can personalize it. Your delivery method is either display it now as a PDF, which most of us prefer so that we can see it before we send it, or you can email it. If you would like to include a custom page on the right hand side, you can customize your information as it appears on the cover sheet, and then you can also show page numbers, so you can number your report pages, and you can manage your custom pages. When you click on manage custom pages, you can go ahead and say add. Let's say I wanted to add the one I found from IMAP. I can click on it, open it, and then the only options you have here is, do you want it to be at the beginning or end of your report? I click on save, and you'll notice that now it says custom pages. There it is, and it's going to be at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and run this report. Now, reports that you run in RPR are stored on the left-hand side for 30 days. After 30 days, they will disappear. They will be removed. So make sure you have saved a copy of it on your device or in the cloud or somewhere, because it won't stay here forever. This is what the report looks like without editing. So 74 pages of a lot of information. The reason it is so lengthy is because it starts to include market conditions. So you've got all this map information, you've got market health charts and comparisons, and so there's a lot here that isn't necessary for the listing presentation. Might be good for you as the agent, but it's not necessarily something that the customer would be interested in seeing. Okay, there's a lot here that has to do with the market conditions. So I'm going to go ahead and this is 74 pages. We're going to close this out. This is the condensed version. Instead of 74 pages, it's 11 pages. It's going to have your comp analysis. It's going to have 1 page per comparable so that you can kind of discuss each and why you chose it. And then that's it. And then here's the IMAP information that I included. So again, you can kind of combine both. So now we've seen comparable or the CMA in Matrix. We've seen how you can take the comparables from IMAP and include them in your report from Matrix. We ran the report in RPR and we showed you how to include the comparables from IMAP in RPR. So let's go ahead and go back to Matrix. And really quickly, I want to show you what to do if it is a condo. So I would go to search RE1, RE2, and I would repeat the process. So active, active with contract, closed sale, pending sale. This time I would specify condo, condo, and instead of using the map search, because I need to look for comparables that are in the same building, I would go ahead and I would use this second option that says street number, street direction, street name. So if I was using the Axis, which is usually one of my go-tos, I would type in the address, Southwest 12. The other option that you have is instead of pulling in the address for the property, what you could do is, I'm going to go ahead and remove this. What you could do is where it says complex name, you can put an asterisk, type in Axis asterisk. This is going to bring in every listing whose subdivision name or complex name is Axis something. Sometimes people type in Axis condos, Axis 1, Axis 2. I just want everything that says Axis. Now, generally speaking, we like to search, or people prefer to search using the name of the building or the complex. So you can definitely do it this way. Just use the asterisks to make sure that you're capturing everything that contains that word or that phrase in that name. The specific example that I had chosen has 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, so I want to make sure. And the reason I'm doing this is because the Axis has 2 towers. So instead of trying to find the address for both towers, I'm just going to say show me everything that has the name Axis in Miami-Dade County. The unit I'm working with has 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. But what's important with condos is the unit floor location. So this one that I chose is 3401. So you need to be mindful of the unit floor location and the line. Where is it facing? You can kind of focus on, usually they're numbered a certain way, and focus on those specific units that way. But let's say I need everything that's above the 25th floor because this one is on the 34th. You can go to additional fields. You can add in the field that's called unit floor location. And you can go ahead and once you've added it in, put 25 plus. And now I see I have 18 matches that are above the 25th floor that have 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms in the Axis towers. If I click on results, this is why I said to just use subdivision name. Axis on Brickell, Axis on Brickell, Axis on Brickell number 2. This one says Axis, Axis, and they're all the same building, the same complex. So this allows me now to focus on those units that are above that floor. Obviously, I can't compare a unit that's on the 30th floor with a unit that's on the 10th floor. The views are different, and that's going to affect the value as well. So by using unit floor location, you can assure that you're using units that are similar to that one, not just in features, which is easier with a condo, but also similar in location in the sense that they're going to have similar views. So I would definitely use that unit floor location option. So in criteria, in case you have forgotten how to add a field, it's been a while, where it says additional fields, you click on add or add remove. You can conveniently use the search option, click on unit floor location, click on add. Once it's added, make sure you click on the back button, and then you can either specify a floor, put a floor plus, minus, a range, just like you would when you're searching for square footage or price range. All right. So we now know how to create a CMA in Matrix, how to find comparables in IMAP and include them in our reports from Matrix or RPR, and we know how to use RPR to create a CMA. I've also tried to include some of the do's and don'ts and commonly asked questions. If you have any questions, please make sure to type it into the chat feature. So someone had asked in the quick report, you can't add the ones you found on IMAP, right? So if you're talking about the CMA one line, you cannot add the ones from IMAP, but what I would do is you could probably on your own computer just merge the documents. Or when you're, creating it or printing it, just kind of print them and create one report. But yeah, when you're doing the CMA one line with the 3-up comparison, you cannot add pages. Are there any other questions? So again, this will be edited and posted on YouTube and on Miami Realtors Live. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there while you guys think of any other questions you might have. Miami Realtors Live is actually on your gateway, by the way, right here where it says Miami Realtors Live. The listing agent information is at the bottom of the listing. So when I'm just going to pick a random listing. When you click on the listing, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, at the very end it says agent office information, and that's where you would find the listing agent's information as well as the listing office. It is a lot of information. Practice makes perfect though. So this is the perfect time to start kind of clicking around and practice so that hopefully when life goes back to normal, we can hit the ground running. The listing agent's information will not come up on the CMA, so you're safe. The rest of the listing info will. All right, well, if you guys don't have any more questions, have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your time. Hope to see you guys in the next webinar. And if you have any questions in the meantime, you can always email me, Maggie@miamire.com. Have a lovely afternoon, guys.